twisted minds unique.
By the way, with the hat sitting on her like that, tell me she doesn't look like Boy George.
I love it.
I'm not wrong.
But yeah, you're right either.
No, I don't care. Fuck it. Whatever. What is up, all you Slashaholics? Welcome to Slash Sisters. I am Slash Sister Hallie.
And I'm Slash Sister Jen, and we want to welcome you back to your favorite channel for horror movie reviews by true horror movie fans.
That's right.
That's us.
And you. Every Friday. And if this is your first time here, welcome! Where have you been?
Yeah, what took you so long?
3 years. Three.
Pretty close. Almost. We're just maybe
Almost.
a few months shy.
Yeah. But yeah.
So, make sure while you're here, you're already here, so go ahead and just click that. I think it's over in that corner. There's a little bell that will make you subscribe. We'll also put a little, but yeah, slash that subscribe button, y'all. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any of this nonsense that we're doing. Oh, we got a kitty presents.
Hello.
Hello, Ivy. She's come to say hello.
You want to help review Dr. Sleep?
Guess not. She had something to say before.
Speaking of Dr. Sleep, we are going back to the world of Stephen King. Yeah, I know, right?
Yet again. But you know what? When we talk horror, how can you stay away from Stephen King?
He is quite literally one of the most prolific horror writers of the last 50 years.
Yeah, him and Clive Barker, for sure.
Hands down.
Yep.
And we're going back to the world of Dan Torrance via Dr. Sleep.
Mm-hmm. That's right, y'all. We are reviewing the sequel to The Shining. That's literally what this is. And for the very first time on our channel, we're about to review something by Mike Flanagan.
Because most of the stuff he does is made for TV.
Yes, he has done a lot of made for TV. But yeah, this is he's definitely someone that is making waves in the horror world.
He did do another Stephen King adaptation too, Gerald's Game.
Yes, also for Netflix.
Was that?
I think that went straight to Netflix. But yeah, he did that, and then that's the only ones that he's done that are Stephen King, though, right?
Yeah.
But he's also done Midnight Mass and
Fall of House of Usher, Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yep. He's definitely one of the big names in horror right now.
Yeah,
for sure.
and he's actually taking over the Exorcist franchise too.
So I've heard.
So I'm excited to see where that's gonna go.
Yeah, me too.
Because fuck David Gordon Green.
He has messed some things up. That's for sure.
Right. All right, this is a pretty long movie, and it's spread out pretty much across the entire. From Maine to Colorado.
So it's spread across most of the country.
2/3.
Yeah.
2/3, bare minimum, right? So let's get right into it. And as we said, we are covering the director's cut, which is a 3-hour-long film. So this is probably going to be about an hour-long video.
Yeah, that's okay. Stay with us because we got lots to say about this. It's a really great film.
The main difference between the director's cut and the theatrical cut is 30 minutes of extra footage that actually expand upon the story and give a little bit more backstory for certain characters.
And provide so much more context to what you see in the movie. I've actually watched the theatrical cut 1.5 times. Don't ask me why. I started the movie, then I didn't get a chance to finish it, and then when we were reviewing it, I watched the theatrical cut, thinking that was what we were reviewing, and then Hallie was like, no, we're doing the director's cut, and I was like, oh, guess I'll watch it again.
She didn't know how to access the director's cut on my video.
I did not, but now I know. Also, though, the story is the same, and nothing has moved around. So, the director's cut and theatrical cut, the story remains the same.
Right.
However, in the director's cut, we actually are getting a change where we get chapters.
Right, so there's actually a total of 6 chapters, and it's kind of spaced out to about 1 chapter per every half hour or so, and I think it's paced great that way. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We start with, I guess it doesn't really show us the chapter right away.
No.
So, but we start with our first chapter. We begin our story in 1980 with a little girl named Violet who goes to pick flowers. She asks her mom if she can go and pick flowers by the lake. And she kind of wanders through they show her kind of wandering through the woods, picking some, the white flowers that she's picking are, Actually, I guess they might be native to Florida. Anyways, as she walks up towards the lake, she sees a woman sitting there she's singing, isn't she?
I think she's humming. I think.
Kind of humming a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And she says,
"Well, hi there."
That kind of seems to be Rose's line. Well, hi there. She says it a lot.
I think that with her backstory being ambiguous and everything like that, with the way she says it, the hat that she has, I think she's like a Southern debutante.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for sure.
That's been around probably since the Civil War.
Yeah, I can see
that.
that.
That's my guess.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
Yeah.
Rose is singing a song and performs a magic trick for Violet using her hat as she distracts Violet.
Don't worry, that's my friend. You're missing the trick.
A group of people slowly descend upon the girl, and they are seen attacking her. I wonder if this scene...
It's the special ones that taste best.
The girl picking the flowers by the water and everything like that is a nod to Frankenstein.
I hope so, because it really feels like it.
Totally.
I mean, and in Frankenstein, he accidentally kills the little girl by throwing her into the water.
And
so.
there's no accident and killing going on in this. This is 100% intentional.
Very much on purpose. We then see her mom looking for her, searching for her through the woods. This was not shown in the theatrical cut.
No, it was not.
They actually cut straight from the group descending on her
to Danny.
Right. Yeah. So we do get her looking for them, and then for the little girl like yelling for her. And as she's kind of like, you can see it's her starting to panic. You can see the caravan pulling off in the background of the shot, which is kind of cool and scary at the same time.
From there, we get a look at the classic Overlook Hotel and a title card showing that Chapter 1 is entitled Old Ghosts. Aptly so.
Yeah, definitely makes sense when we get into this chapter. Next, we are still in 1980, and we are with Dan Torrance, who has not spoken since their ordeal at the Overlook Hotel in The Shining.
I can't blame him, honestly.
No.
That boy was traumatized.
Can you imagine? And not only that, he kind of talks about it later, too. He thought he had an imaginary friend in his head. All of his life leading up to that. And then to go through that kind of trauma and seeing what he saw in The Shining, I can't even imagine.
Danny is still being tormented by the ghosts of the Overlook, or I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call them ghosts. I mean, I guess they kind of are ghosts.
I mean, they're ghosts, sort of. But they're similar to. I mean, he talks about it later that it's a place.
They're hungry.
And they're hungry, and they're feeding the Overlook.
They were.
Right. But they're similar to the people that we encounter.
Right. The knot.
The true knot. Yeah.
Anyway, these entities have followed him from the Overlook to Florida, where he and Wendy now live a quiet, solitary life without Jack, because Jack froze to death.
Yep.
Dan later tells us it is because they never wanted to see snow again that they are currently living in Florida.
Yeah, he talks about it way later in the movie. We'll talk about that then too, but yeah, the reason that they moved to Florida was because they never wanted to see snow again, and rightfully so after what they went through.
Right.
One night, Danny wakes up to go to the bathroom and finds Lorraine Massey, which is the woman from room 237 of the Overlook Hotel.
Or 217 if you read the book.
True. Yes, I know they changed it.
Right.
But she's the lady in the bathtub, the little lady with the rotting skin and everything.
She steps onto the bath mat and comes towards him, but he closes the door and pees his pants like the sad little kid that he is.
Yeah. I mean, that'd probably make me pee my pants too. Shoot. Anyways, Wendy cleans him up, and when she goes to check the bathroom, she sees the wet footprints on the floor, on the mat, just outside the bathtub. So, yeah. I mean, and she turns around and, shuts the door. I don't want any part of that. Do you think she ever saw the woman in 237? When they were in the Overlook?
I don't know that she saw any of it. I don't know that she has the shine. Clearly the shine comes from Jack's family.
But at the end, when she's being chased, she's running around with the knife. She sees multiple ghosts.
That is true. She does see the bear costume thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I think
the guy with the bloody head.
I think at that point she was so fucking traumatized from the events between Jack and Danny and everything like that her psyche kind of fractured a little bit and could see
that makes sense.
Pierce the veil.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. So anyways, one day as they're sitting, Danny is sitting on a bench near the beach, and the ghost of Dick Hallorann sits down next to him. It's kind of interesting because I saw this in an interview with Stephen King and Mike Flanagan, and they were talking about how he was going to bridge this because Dick Hallorann does not die in The Shining, in the book.
Nope. Thank you, fucking Kubrick, for reading that.
And, Mike was like, I just made him a ghost. And Steven was like, what a brilliant way to come. It's the most simple but brilliant solution you just make him a ghost.
And can we just talk about Carl Lumbly playing fucking Scatman Crothers?
Okay.
That's his name, right? Scatman?
Yes. So,
he's fucking phenomenal.
He's phenomenal. The kid that plays Danny doesn't look exactly like him, but enough to where... And the girl that plays Wendy. Holy crap. Alex Esso, I think is her name.
Alexandra. Yeah.
She is amazing. Like, the facial expressions that she makes, her voice.
I wish they would have gotten Ray Nicholson to play...
that would have been really cool.
To play Jack later in the film.
Yeah,
because
he looks so much like his dad. But they made Henry Thomas look so much like Jack.
He had to shave his head.
Yeah, he did. Anyways, so Dick sits down next to him, and basically he has come to talk to Danny because he's like, so I hear you're not talking, huh, Doc? And eventually kind of they get to talking about how those things are going to keep coming for him. And but also that he taught him how to shine,
and someday, Danny Torrance, you'll teach someone else.
He teaches Danny a technique that was taught to him by, I think it was grandmother.
I think it's his grandfather.
Okay,
maybe.
It was grandparent.
Grandparent of some sort. Yes.
But he shows them a box and he tells Danny to look at it, memorize it, know the inside and out the details of the box, because I want you to build your own boxes so you can trap the damn things from the Overlook. So they can't harm you.
Mm-hmm. Let's get you back to Mama. Wendy will worry. And she shouldn't have to worry another day in her life.
Daddy!
So he teaches them how to do that. And that night, he and Wendy are sitting watching television. I think they're watching
like Bugs Bunny, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Because I think he says, "What's up, Doc?"
Right.
Anyways, so he gets up and walks to the bathroom, and he traps that bitch in his first trap. And like when he shuts the door, you hear her screaming. So clearly she knows that like this is not good. That she's being put away. But he returns back to the room and
as if nothing happened.
And sits down, and she asks him a question, and he talks for the first time.
Yeah. We then flash forward to 2011. Dan has become I wouldn't say functioning alcoholic, but an alcoholic nonetheless, following in great footsteps of Jack Torrance.
Of his dad, yeah.
But he's drowning his sorrows in order to suppress his shine, basically.
Yeah, that's how he's figured out how to suppress it. And you know what? As you were just saying with... it likely coming from Danny, the Torrance side of the family.
I'm almost
Jack's
certain
side
it
of the family.
Because that's
it could have been that Jack was suppressing his all along too.
Well, I mean, if we're looking at the source material, it definitely came from his dad's side of the family, because in the book, Dr. Sleep, Abra is actually Danny's niece.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that whole Uncle Dan thing actually makes sense then.
Right. Jack had an affair on Wendy and sired another child, which is actually Dan's brother or sister. I can't remember which one's which.
Which would be Abra's
mom or dad.
Which she looks so much like Wendy, it's almost a little weird.
So, but
different actresses, but they could be the same person.
But that's
okay. That actually makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
The Uncle Dan thing makes even more sense.
Yeah, because in the book, Abra knows that Dan is her uncle.
Okay.
I don't know how she found out. I haven't read the book. Of course not. Why would I read the book?
Right.
Never have fucking time to do anything.
Right. He wakes one morning in an apartment with a woman who has vomited in the bed next to him.
He gets flashes of what happened the night before involving a bar fight where he almost killed someone with a billiard ball.
Yeah.
And
she was kind of turned on thinking the fact that she was like, maybe you did kill him. And then she like kisses him, like turned on by, weird.
And a lot of nose candy being used back at the woman's apartment.
Yes. After realizing that his money was gone, he steals her money out of her wallet. And
he puts back the food stamps, though.
Yeah, he does. As he's starting to leave, he sees that there is a child there, which is...
Dick then appears again to Danny, telling him that what he's doing is wrong. Dan ignores him, leaving the child next to his mom and leaving the apartment. He did give the kid some cheese.
Yeah, he did. And there was actually, in the director's cut, there is a little bit more conversation that happens between Dick and...
Yeah, because Danny thought Dick was another...
Yeah, he tried to lock him up. Right. He tries to lock up Dick a couple of times in the movie, actually.
Yeah, because he does it again later.
Yep, but Dick says to him that you cannot lock up a memory, and that's what I got as a memory.
Right.
So, which is interesting.
No, not him. He was trying to lock up. Well, first he tried to lock up.
He was trying to lock up the memory.
Then he was trying to lock up the memory of what he had just done.
What he had just done. Yeah, and that he told him, you can't lock up a memory. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
So then we are introduced to Abra, and actually this part is not in the theatrical cut at all. This is a completely added scene. So we're introduced to Abra for the first time, and she is sitting playing piano at her home in New Hampshire. And then her parents come along and tell her, time for bed. Mm-hmm.
Later, her parents hear the piano playing again and go downstairs thinking they will find their daughter Abra, but instead they find the keys depressing themselves.
Mm-hmm. But Abra's like laying in her bed smiling.
Yeah, because
playing it with her mind.
Apparently, she is shining.
Mm-hmm. So then we go back to Rose the Hat.
Which is why I wear my hat and why Jenny's wearing her hat.
I'm wearing a hat today, but that's why Hallie wears her hat all the time.
Because I like mine's a pork pie, though. It's not a beaver skin mini top hat, which is what, and believe it or not, the hat that Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, that's her name.
Rebecca Ferguson wears in this is like 150 years old.
Yeah.
Like it's a true beaver skin top hat.
Yeah.
So I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, right? So we go back to Rose the Hat and the members of the True Knot, and we see Rose and Crow Daddy are sitting in a theater watching a young girl.
Mm-hmm. The girl, who they end up calling Snake by Andy, can hypnotize people and is known as a pusher.
Sleep.
Meaning that she can push people to do what she wants.
Yeah, so they kind of like watch her as she's 15, okay? She has lured.
I thought she said she was 17, but whatever.
I think she even says later that she's 15. Anyways, she has lured this man to a theater who is clearly an adult, and she is clearly a child. And she tells him to go to sleep.
She then proceeds to steal his money and then carve 2 little holes in the side of his cheek.
A snake bite.
And apparently, Rose and Crow Daddy
find that very interesting.
Right, they want to recruit her for the True Knot as opposed to draining her.
Right. And so, like, when they kind of follow her out from the theater, and like Crow Daddy tries to stop her, and she's like, "You want to leave me alone?" And she definitely makes it work on Crow Daddy. He resists it a little bit.
But I don't think he was fully persuaded. Yeah. Because, like, he was looking around and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I think she got freaked out, and that's when she turned around and ran right smack dab into Rose.
Yep. And Rose, she tried to do it to Rose, and she was like,
You want to let me go? Oh, no, sweetie. No, I don't.
So they basically end up recruiting her to be part of the True Knot, and we haven't really mentioned what the True Knot is yet. They are a group of psychic vampires. I mean, like, soul vampires. They don't drink blood. They're not vampires in that sense.
They eat people's shine.
Mm-hmm.
And the shine prolongs their life.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why we were talking about
It
Rose
doesn't
maybe
make them,
being
like,
200 years old.
Doesn't make them immortal. It doesn't. I mean, they can still die.
They can still die.
But yeah, it can make them live for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Right.
In fact, Grandpa Flick could be 1,000 years old for.
Yeah, I think he's
what
from
we
the
can
old
kind of
country.
tell.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah.
So Rose made Andy sleep for about 3 days.
Yeah.
And when she awakes, she explains about the True Knot and how they are a family. And that she...
And I mean, really, for as long as they are together, they really do become a family in a really twisted, fucked up way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, you and your friend? Not my friend, that's my family. We're the True Knot, dear.
But she also says that she can stay and be young with them for a very long time if she joins the True Knot. What was she says,
You can push people. Eat well. Stay young. Live long.
At this point, we get a little title card, another little title card. Title card, as James Janice would say. But at this point, we are now on to Chapter 2, Empty Devils. After waking up on the ground, after another long night of drinking, Dan decides that he needs to do something different. He kind of like just gets a hair up his ass. I don't even know if it's a hair up his ass. I think he gets like a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
He gets like this calling to be away from, I assume he was in New York City. That's my assumption. Or some large city. I can't remember if they actually say.
I personally
where
think
he
that it was
started
definitely out east, though,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I think he has...
Because I don't think he goes very far.
No, because he doesn't have a lot of money to go with.
Right, exactly. Because in fact, in the director's cut, they don't show this in the theatrical cut, but in the director's cut, he goes and he's like hands them all the money that he has, and he's like, take this, let me take me as far as I can get.
Right.
So he hops on a bus and goes to a small town in New Hampshire called Fraser, where he meets a man named Billy Freeman, literally like as soon as he gets off the bus.
Mm-hmm. Played by the wonderful Cliff Curtis.
I love Cliff Curtis so much. He is so underrated, and I wish he would get more recognition or bigger roles.
Oh,
or
no,
something.
he's definitely...
I know he's definitely gotten some bigger roles, but like, not enough people know him, like, look at him and go, oh, that's Cliff Curtis.
No, because he's always in the background playing like a thug or like a Middle Easterner, even though he's like Samoan.
Right.
Anyway, Billy recognizes that look that Dan has, and after showing him around Teeny Town,
which is literally like a small version of like the town square, which is, it's really cute.
Right, and then
I love it.
Dan took a shining pun intended, to the train.
Yeah.
That goes around and everything. He takes him back to a boarding house where he lives and vouches for him so he can get a room.
Why are you doing this? You don't know me.
No, I don't. But I know the look.
Yeah, which is like, that's rad. Anyways, the room even comes with a chalk wall left there by the previous tenant, who was like a mathematician or something.
Like that. Billy takes Dan to an AA meeting where he then becomes his sponsor and he is introduced to the guy running the meetings, who also works at a hospice center and offers Dan a job.
That was a big recap because this movie is so long. But yeah, that when he goes to meet with the doctor about that job.
But the doctor's played by Bruce Greenwood, who has been in a shit ton of stuff by Mike Flanagan.
Yep. Mike Flanagan does have a tendency to use a lot of the same actors. But there's lots of people that do
Carla
that.
Gambino, even the guy that plays Grandpa Frick.
His wife.
Yeah.
Also has been in a bunch of his stuff. What's her name? Kate Siegel. Yeah. Anyways, during this, after the AA meeting, he goes to meet with the doctor.
And tells him about the watch.
And the doctor's office. Oh yeah, that's before. That's at the end of the AA meeting.
Yeah.
He like gets a shine. He's like, hey, you know your watch that you're looking for? He tells him exactly where his watch is. But yeah, so then he goes to like meet the doctor at the doctor's office.
The doctor's office is the office manager from the hotel.
It is
Overlook.
like spitting image of
100%.
the hotel.
100%.
The Overlook Hotel's manager's
The
office.
magazine that he picks up is the same Playgirl that
Is
his
it
dad
really?
picked up
No
at the
shit.
Overlook. Yeah.
Oh my god. That's crazy.
Right. Fucking
Crazy,
attention
crazy.
to detail.
I
I'm telling
know.
you.
I know. There's another little attention to detail that I want to mention later that I noticed on this last watch that I was like, look at you. Anyways,
Dan begins his job at the hospice center, and one night a patient is about to die, as indicated by the cat Azzy, or
Azrael.
Short for Azrael. They actually had to have two different cats play the cat because they had to have a younger version and an older version.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they do flash forward from 2011 to
years.
2019.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Back to sleep.
Dan confronts the patient using his abilities, telling the man to not be scared. The man
he talks inside of his brain.
Well, not at first.
Yeah, not at first. Yeah.
And then the man gives Dan the moniker Dr. Sleep.
Ta-da!
Since he helped the man ease into his transition into the next, shedding the mortal coil, if you will, whatever.
Yep. We then get to meet Abra Stone again, and it's her birthday party. After, she keeps kind of interrupting. They have a magician there, and she keeps interrupting. I can do that. And, like, at one point he's got, like, spoons hanging all off of him, and she's like, I can do that, and he's like, that's great, honey. But she, after the party, while her parents are cleaning up, they, like, walk into the kitchen, and they see forks all over the floor. But Mom is looking up at the ceiling, because all of the spoons are hanging from the ceiling. Yes.
Not, like, to the ceiling, but,
no, like hanging from the tips of the spoons.
Yeah.
Like they're just dangling there. Which obviously freaks her parents out, and then she realizes that this is freaking her parents out and drops everything.
And it's also at this point that she decides to stuff down her shine because she doesn't want to scare her parents anymore.
Yep. Which is...
They're scared of me.
I mean, it's sad.
After this, this is clearly a time jump of a little bit.
But not much, because she's still the same age the very first time she communicates with Dan.
But shortly after this scene, she telepathically reaches out to Dan. I don't know if she can just sense him because his shine's great or whatever.
He's close enough that she can feel him. She does say later that it feels like GPS, like that she could find him through GPS almost.
Right. And writes a message on his chalk wall. He can feel her presence and tell her that her powers were much stronger than his.
He could tell that her powers were.
I mean, for her to reach out at such a young age.
Yeah.
Without having any training.
Yeah, not knowing anybody else with the shine.
Exactly.
Yeah, like...
She's lucky she didn't get picked up by the tree.
Yeah!
Danny's lucky he didn't get picked up.
Okay.
Because the tree knot
was in Florida. They showed the missing poster for Violet when they were showing Danny on the beach, and that was like, oh my god. Like, how did they not know Danny was there? How could they not feel it? Probably because they were so overtaken by Violet at the time.
But I think Danny was also trying not to use his shine.
because of what had just
happened at the Overlook.
So he was probably suppressing it at that point too, which makes sense. After Abra and Dan's first exchange on the chalkboard, we then fade to the same shot of the Overlook shown at the beginning of the movie, and it kind of like rolls into this tracking shot through the hotel. I keep knocking it. I'm a hand talker. What can I say? Anyways, like this tracking shot lingers all the way to the end on a filled whiskey glass sitting on the ballroom bar counter. And then the title card again for our next chapter, Chapter 3, Little Spy. I like that it inserts these little pictures of the Overlook, because in the theatrical cut, we don't get any of that.
There's
actually maybe little bits, but not the way that we get it in the director's cut.
So they actually reused footage from The Shining.
Yeah.
They made it look like night, and they added snow digitally to the frame and everything. But it's the sweeping shot over the water and everything from The Shining when Dan goes to the Overlook.
Yeah, I mentioned that later in the script too. But yeah, I mean they really did use that's the only time I think they used real stuff from The Shining.
Right.
Everything else when you see. So, like, in the beginning of the movie, when we see Danny thinking about his time in the Overlook, they recreated the Overlook.
On
the
stage.
carpet, the walls, every detail on a soundstage so that they could recreate those shots, which is just incredible. And obviously, later, we go to the Overlook as well, and that was all recreated on soundstage.
And they aged it up, and then they had to start over again because it looked too bad.
Yeah.
And whatever. We then jump forward again, another 8 years, so now we're in 2019.
Yep.
As Dan is getting his 8-year sober coin, he talks about hope. He talks about hose.
How? I don't know how to type. apparently. I made that E and W were like right next to each other. I just didn't even notice it.
He talks about how the only way he could connect to his dad was through alcohol because unfortunately he doesn't have very many memories of his dad.
Yeah,
he was only like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
He hurt me once when he was drunk. Broke my arm. Then he dried right out.
We then see Dan comforting another patient to sleep, telling him about all the people he had waiting for him.
Yeah, this second patient that he talks with, you know, I mean, it's obvious that the patients now know who Dan is.
Yeah.
Before the patients all knew about Azzy, and if Azzy showed up on your bed, that meant you were going to die because that first patient talked about that. Dan obviously hadn't been there for very long and didn't know about the Azzy thing. But now, like, this patient wakes up and he sees Azzy at his feet, and then he looks over and sees Dan sitting next to him. And, like, I think you can tell that he's comforted by knowing that they're both there. But Dan just, like, helps him to ease into death, basically, which I think is a really beautiful thing.
Oh, no.
I wish I, like...
Oh, look at that. Like a deck of cards. All out of order. There was nothing before. So what if there's nothing after?
I hope someday when I die that some person with The Shining helps to ease me into death. That would be wonderful. Wouldn't we all like to die of old age being eased in by someone like who can see everything you're seeing? Wouldn't that be great?
And a cat comforting you.
Yes, a cat at your feet. Like, that's how I want to die. You heard it here. That's how I want to die. Fantasies. Anyways.
I mean, let's keep it real. Live fast, die young, right?
Right? Leave behind a good-looking corpse.
I don't know about good looking, but I mean, maybe you, but not so much me.
Quit. So the True Knot's supply of steam is running low. Everyone's starting to get weaker, especially Grandpa Flick. And their powers are just not as strong. They're having a hard time focusing their powers. You know, like Crow Daddy is having a hard time tracking, which is his main job, is tracking down people with steam.
I can tell you, he's been around since at least the Civil War because his holster that he has for his pistol is a Colt U.S. issue Continental Army.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that actor, Zahn something or other. I can't think what his last name is, but he's fantastic.
They do actually find this boy, this young baseball player, number 19. So that's how they refer to him.
Yeah, and it's interesting, this scene where a couple of the members of the Knot are watching him.
Right.
So the guy who says to there's two guys sitting there and they're like, oh, you gotta watch number 19. He's amazing. It's like he can tell what pitch the pitcher's gonna throw.
Yeah.
The guy that said that is Dan Torrance. It's the same guy. He never did anything else in acting, but he agreed to do one little tiny cameo, and that was Danny. Nice. That was the original Danny Torrance. So, fun little tidbit for you.
Anyway, the Knot, knowing that he has the shine, kidnap him. Apparently his name is Bradley. While he's walking home from a baseball game, they bring him to their caravan where they torture him, telling him that the pain makes steam taste better. They filmed this scene, right?
No, please let me go! I won't tell, please!
And the horrific cries that the kid actor was emanating.
Like, Jacob Tremblay. Is amazing.
It made every other actor stop.
Are you gonna hurt me?
Yeah.
And they're on their knees, bawling their eyes out. He gets up, fake blood all over him, runs over to craft services, and he's like, "All right, let's."
That kid is
he was fucking he was happy to be there.
Okay,
and everybody else was like traumatized by him.
Yeah, there's a lot of great kid actors out there. There really is. This kid, he was also in the movie. I think it's just called Room.
Damn, I thought he had another few minutes in him.
Where it's about him and his mom. His mom was kidnapped and impregnated, and she raised him in this. He's like 6 or 7 years old. They've never
Well, he would have to be
room.
young because this is from 2019.
Yeah,
so.
this was around the same time. But he is like the main character in that movie, and he's phenomenal. Like, he is a child actor that I have never seen. There's a lot of great child actors. Jacob Tremblay is one that we need to keep our eyes on, because if he continues growing his craft into adulthood, like, watch out for that one. Anyways, that's just my opinion, I guess.
An image of the knot torturing Bradley flashes in Abra's mind, and her distress alerts not only Danny, but Rose to her presence. She awakens screaming from the vision, and the word murder shows up on Danny's wall. Not just drawn on with chalk, cracked into the fucking wall.
Yeah.
And it shows up as red
Yeah,
rum,
because
actually.
he sees it in the mirror first, which is like reverse of what it is in The Shining, where she sees it on the wall, Wendy sees it on the wall, and then sees it in the mirror. It says red rum on the wall. She sees it in the mirror and sees that it says murder. So it's this weird little kind of mirror image of what happened in The Shining. So at this point, Rose, like, as they're cleaning up, and God, what they do to that I mean, they literally like push on his body to try and push every bit of steam out of him as they possibly can. It's disgusting.
Yeah, that's what they call the shine, is steam.
Anyways, so as they're burying his body, Rose tells Crow Daddy that they have a watcher.
You're saying someone looked in from 1,500 miles away?
And that watcher was tapping in from probably like 1,500 miles away from where they were. Meaning
that was Iowa.
Iowa, yeah.
And she's in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Meaning that she likely has the strongest shine they have ever encountered.
Which gives Rose the idea to not just drain her or turn her.
Think of a cow. You butcher one, that gives you meat for a month. Keep it alive. Gives you milk for years.
For lack of a better term.
A white whale. Yeah. Which is just...
Because she feels that Abra's shine is enough to sustain the true knot
for
decades.
Literally. Yeah. The next chapter, Turn World, shows that I'm gonna just end up breaking something. Get this away from me. Anyways, Turn World begins as Abra secretly travels by bus to meet Dan at the town square. So she's like, her mom drops her off at school, and she watches her mom leave, and she just walks off and goes and buys herself a ticket. But she literally explains...
Who the fuck lets a child get on a bus?
Yeah, she, like, explains... I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I guess. She's, like, 12, so, I mean, I think there is an age limit for buses. I'm not really sure what it is.
I mean, at one point in time, it used to be legal to send your child via mail.
Yeah.
To your grandparents. I wish I was making that up, but no, that is an actual fact from our U.S. history.
Yep. But she, like, basically explains to Dan that it was, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, that she knew where he was kind of by, like, psychic GPS.
You can hear me.
Let's use our outside voices, all right?
She could just feel where he was, and she knew who he was as soon as she got off the bus, too. But they sit down and talk, and basically he's like...
When I was a kid, I didn't understand The Shining. I called it Tony.
Don't entice her. Like, don't go back to her. Don't draw any attention to yourself. Like, clearly, they're bad people who are hurting people, and we don't want them coming for you.
Abra has taken it upon herself to try to track down the members of this true knot.
Even though Dan told her to stop.
Right. So, Rose is out actually gathering groceries. Fucking responsible of her. Whatever.
Apparently they eat something other than people's souls.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Anyway, Abra projects herself into Rose's mind, and Rose feels her.
Yeah.
And Rose starts to slide into Abra's mind, and Abra throws her out and across, like, shatters the door to the refrigeration unit in the store that she's at and throws her across the floor.
Yeah, I mean, Rose
and
has
then
a bloody
throws
nose.
her even more.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, she ain't having that.
And that's when she got the idea to use her as milk, as feed.
Get out!
Yeah.
As opposed to...
Yeah, because she realized just how fucking
powerful
strong she was and how powerful she was. From 1,500 miles away to still be able to do something like that. Not just be looking, but to enter into Rose. That's crazy.
So... they decide to try to start tracking her down.
Mm-hmm.
And they've narrowed it down to the East Coast.
Which is really interesting, too, because, yeah, they've narrowed it to the East Coast, but her daddy comes in with an article on a tablet for her to read.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about an earthquake that happened that everybody on the street felt, but did not register as any kind of seismic activity.
It was Abra pushing Rose out of her mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they were able to track her.
Yep. That's how they figured out where she was.
So that night, Rose decides to try to enter Abra's mind. She projects herself into Abra's mind in this incredible, beautiful shot where she floats over the country and into her room.
Yeah, she's just like, it almost looks like she's just standing there as she's floating. Like she's just, but she's like, you know, looking down over the, it's just, it's beautiful. It really is cool. Rose is a little bit caught off guard though.
She was massively caught off guard because she gets her fucking hand
because
caught in a cookie jar.
she sees this big wall of
Filing cabinets.
Very
which is actually a
organized
nod to a
filing
previous
cabinets.
work from Stephen King, Dreamcatcher.
Oh, yeah. So, she goes to put her hand in and open up a filing cabinet, which is mysteriously just open for her to look into.
Well, they were kind of propped open a little bit, but she pulls it open, reaches her hand in, starts ruffling through, and then bam, slam, bam, thank you, man, get your hand out of the fucking cookie jar.
I mean, her hand is fucking stuck, which leaves Abra enough time to enter into Rose's mind and start stealing as much as she can.
Right.
Which is interesting, but she's like, okay, that hand,
yeah.
If you've seen Gerald's Game, apparently Mike Flanagan has some kind of thing about destroying hands.
He has a thing about destroying people in general.
Yeah.
Haunting on Hill House. Kirk Bentnet Lady.
Yeah. Have you seen Hush? That was one of his first movies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he destroys his wife's hand in that one.
Anyway.
You got a thing about hands.
Anyway, Rose attempts to pull her hand free from the said filing cabinet, only to actually tear the flesh from her hand in real life.
Herself. Oh, really?
Yeah. In real, not like the actress Rebecca Ferguson,
right?
But
Rose, right.
Rose had to have her hand bandaged afterwards because the skin literally tore from
because
her
when
hand.
she finally like she literally gets thrown back into her body.
Mm-hmm.
And she rolls onto the floor, like off of the top of the camper and onto the ground, and her hand is fucking mangled. It is gross. But as she falls, like they come running and tell her, somebody comes to tell her that Grandpa Flick
is cycling. Which apparently is code for he's gonna burn out.
Yeah, he's gonna die of old age, basically.
He didn't have enough shine.
Yeah. We get to see this like really horrific scene, which is, like I said, essentially someone dying of old age, but it's like
I said, live long, eat well.
Like frightening to watch. Like sad.
It was sad and frightening until you see the true knot descend upon him to suck up his fucking shine, because then I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah, because once he was dead, they didn't care.
He was food at that point.
Yep.
And they trembled in their villages and beds and skyscrapers.
He was food.
Yep. But right before, Rose does give like almost like a little like
eulogy
to him, talking about how he fed on kings and princes and whole cities.
It's almost a mirror image of Danny at that point, putting him to sleep. Or easing him into that shedding the moral coil type scene or whatever. After Grandpa Flick cycles out, Rose sends the rest of her members.
Well, she wanted to go.
Sans Crow Daddy. She sent Crow Daddy one way and the rest of the members the other way.
But I got some tricks of my own.
To capture Abra, now that she knows exactly where the fuck she's at.
Yeah.
Abra tells Dan what happened with Rose and says that she can track the true knot if she can touch Bradley's baseball glove.
Because one of the members of the True Knot had been holding it. So his essence is there, and so she'd be able to track where they are at and where they're coming from, knowing that they're coming to get her. I mean, she knows. They all know that they're coming to get her.
And this cues up our next chapter.
So Dan, at this point, Dan and Billy, like, he goes to Billy and he's like, look, I'm about to tell you the most crazy ass story ever, and I just need you to believe me and come with me.
I don't know how the fuck he convinced him.
I don't either, but they fucking drive to Iowa
from New Hampshire,
and they exhume Bradley's body and retrieve the glove. And look, I'm sorry,
they both break down.
I know
they both break down when they dig up Bradley's body. He was like, my God, they didn't even have the common It's shallow grave.
It's a shallow, yeah. I mean, it's
not even 3 feet down.
Yeah, this whole scene is just like awful. It's awful. But I have to say, from my own perspective, and maybe I've just watched way too much true crime shit, but I'm like, what are you doing? You're out there, like, okay, so you're, like, supposed to be digging up this body to, like, give the family closure and get the glove. You're out there, you're leaving your DNA, you're digging up a body, you're stealing evidence.
Well,
like,
they were
what the
wearing
fuck?
gloves.
I know it's just a movie, but still.
They weren't wearing gloves.
So? They were sweating and digging and everything else. Yeah, no, sorry. Anyways. So at that point, you definitely made yourselves look super guilty. But either way, this is the start of chapter 5. Parlor tricks at this point.
They go to Abra's house with the baseball glove and meet her father, who is none too happy to meet Uncle Dan. She's a 12-year-old girl. You're a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Your Uncle Dan? The fuck you think you are? She's 13 years old!
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I have an 11-year-old daughter. I'd freak the fuck out, too. Anyways.
Abra makes a shrill sound to stop her dad from attacking Dan.
She, like, touches his head. In the theatrical cut, it's different. And in the theatrical cut, she shows him what happened with Bradley at that point.
Yeah,
but in the director's cut, that's not what happens. She, like, makes a loud noise to make him stop, and then they go inside.
But later in the house, she shows her dad what happened to Bradley using her powers, which Dan tells her to do, so she can prove to him, her father, that is, what's going on.
Yeah.
That what actually is going on is real.
Yeah, yeah, and that Dan wasn't the one who killed the little boy. You know, because at this point, like, you're looking pretty guilty, dude.
Which scares the fuck out of him, and he immediately pours, I think it's Jameson. Shakily pours Jameson. Several shots.
Drinks I've ever seen.
Offers them both to Billy and Dan, and they're both like declined politely.
You know. But using so now here's the plan. Using a telepathic projection of Abra as bait. Like, we don't really know this.
Nope, we don't.
So they lure the True Knot into this campground, and she's sitting on a table just waiting for them, which should have been their first sign that this was not right.
Right, should have been. Snake by Andy injects what she thought was Abra with a syringe of some kind of knockoff.
And she turns around to them all, and she's like, "That was way too easy."
That was way too easy. And then she turns back around, and it's a fucking teddy bear.
What the fuck? Yes.
To which Dan and Billy basically just murk everybody.
They've been hiding in the woods
with hunting rifles because when Billy and Dan dug up the boy, Billy said, "I know that smell. That's the smell of rotting flesh."
Yeah.
Because he used to hunt deer, and when he shot a deer and couldn't get to it and found it the next day, he vowed never to hunt again. Because
he found it like a few days later.
Yeah,
and been
because
for a few days.
The smell of rot just turned him off from hunting completely. Yeah. But Dan asked him if he still had the hunting rifle, so they could set this little trap.
So yeah, this is the trap. But yeah, right after Andy like shoots her, thinks she's shooting her with the poison
and
or
it's
whatever.
a fucking teddy bear.
And it's I think it's a stuffed rabbit or something. But the guy that was wearing the glove, I can't remember what his name is, and they didn't mention his name.
He played Lonnie in the Halloween.
Yeah,
Kills.
I know. Anyways, Lonnie over there yells "parlor tricks" right before he gets shot. So like that's why like when you were like, "Wait, are you sure this part's called parlor tricks?" Yeah, I remember that because it was like the one time that it like actually lined up, and I remembered hearing it. But yeah, it's an ambush and they literally kill fucking everyone.
They kill everyone with the exception of Snakebite Andy, who,
Fucking men.
hypnotizes Billy into killing himself before she cycles out.
Yeah. Which... I mean, and it happens so fast. Heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally heartbreaking. I cried. I was like, no!
Right, because I love Cliff Curtis.
I know, me too.
He's great in everything he does.
And the character of Billy is just a good,
He's
genuinely good person. He's a good man who would do anything for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally, like, if it wasn't for him, I don't know that Dan would have been able to pull himself up so easily.
I don't know that it...
Or at all.
And Dan wouldn't have been able to help Abra.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Anyways. So, Crow Daddy then...
It went a different way than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
Remember?
They then show Crow Daddy injecting the actual Abra in the neck with a drug to knock her out.
And the projection of Abra disappears, and Danny's left alone in the woods with all these dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Looking really sus.
Yeah.
Well, at least his friend.
Yes. Well, all the other bodies turned to steam, though. So, his friend's dead body...
That's why I said at least his friend.
His friend's dead body and a bunch of piles of clothes laying around everywhere. Oddly enough. But yeah, after he gets Abra, then he kills Abra's... Well...
Always tickles me watching you rubes threaten a god.
First he says something to... He says, you must be Abra's father. And he said, I'm glad I get a chance to compliment the chef. Disgusting. Gross. And then he kills him.
And he kills him with a really big butcher
Yeah,
knife like
real
this.
big knife. Just stabs him right in the fucking chest. I mean, they don't show him killing him. But as he's carrying Abra out of the house, you see his body sitting on the floor.
Right. Dan, who has decided to fully embrace the shine now because he knows that he has to in order to find Abra, does exactly what Abra has done. And puts himself inside her mind, and he forces Crow Daddy to crash the car, killing him and freeing Abra.
It's really interesting the little conversation that he and Crow Daddy have, as Abra has with Crow Daddy.
Oh, shit. Oh, this is one hell of a hangover.
Yeah, I haven't felt hungover like this in 8 years or some shit.
Right.
And I was like, oh man. It was a really fun little conversation. But yeah.
Who are you?
I'm the guy that killed your friends.
Crow Daddy go flying through the window. And the funny thing is like, we didn't really mention this.
Right, because the entire time everybody's getting killed off, Rose can feel every
single person's death, and she sees because she's like got this very psychic connection to everyone. Yeah, it is heartbreaking to see her lose her entire family. Even though, like, I mean, they're bad people, but it's like...
I didn't feel a lick of sorry for her.
Yeah,
not a lick.
I guess not. It's, I guess, her performance, I guess, is what I'm saying. It is... Her performance was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Not saying that I feel bad for her, but her performance was great.
All right, bitch, child.
Rose then consumes the rest of the steam supply. Literally everything. Just takes it all. Which heals the wounds on her hand. And she's ready to go, basically.
Now it is time for our final chapter. What was forgotten?
We actually, this is what we were talking about earlier, we get the actual original shots from the start of The Shining, which is the Torrance family driving up to the Overlook at the very beginning. Well, it's
initially it's just
shot,
it's an overarching shot over the water and over the trees, coming up to the Overlook. But
and then they do show that the shot of the car that they use is actually from the original.
Yeah, they just added a bunch of snow and digitally altered the car and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are actually, out of the entire movie, the only original shots from The Shining. So yeah,
was about the only thing they could fucking use.
Yeah, well, but yeah, they drive to the Overlook.
Dan and Abra return to the abandoned Overlook because Dan believes it will be as dangerous for Rose as it is for him and Abra. I think it's a little bit more so.
Yeah.
Especially considering how much shine she consumed before she gets there.
Yeah, and not only that, like, Dan's at least familiar with it. Like, he's had that place in his mind for his entire life, you know?
And he has everybody from there in his mind.
Yep. And I can't wait for y'all to see where they're trapped. It's so fucking beautiful. As soon as he gets there, he starts up the boiler and awakens the hotel. And
the hotel starts to wake up the second he sets foot in.
Yeah. I mean,
the lights start turning on
turning
before he even
on.
gets to the fucking boiler.
Yep. And this place has been... Those aren't real lights. I mean, like, there's no way that still has electricity connected to it.
No, because the boiler's turned off. The boiler was what was supplying the electricity.
Right.
It's been abandoned since the Torrance incident in the 1980s.
Yes, this is all magic, shine, whatever that is happening that is waking this
literally
place up.
40 years later, he goes back to the place that traumatized him.
Mm-hmm. And he kind of walks to the hallway where the twins were at, and they don't show anything, but he looks down the hallway. We all have that memory. He knows what he's having of that memory. They also show him going to the door where his dad chopped through it, and
but
a recreated shot with the girl that plays with the new Wendy.
Right. But they didn't get the door right. Because
I know.
Both panels were knocked out.
I know.
On the top part of the door in The Shining. And I know because we just watched The Shining at the Tartan a few
and we
weeks
just
ago.
watched it, like, within the last year for
right.
review.
Right. Right. But yeah, so he ends up just perusing through the hotel and ends up in the gold room.
Yeah.
The old ballroom. And he sits down at the bar, only to be greeted by Lloyd, the bartender. But it's
slow night, Mr. Torrance. Not for long, I imagine.
clearly meant to be Jack.
Clearly supposed to be Jack Torrance. And, I mean, like, Dan says that, too.
Yeah, he calls him Dad.
Yeah, he calls him Dad. But...
A man tries. He provides. But he's surrounded by mouths. And a family. A wife. A kid. Those mouths eat time. They eat your days on Earth.
They have a pretty long conversation, actually, here. And he talks about the awful times that Wendy and him had after they left the Overlook. He talks about how his mom wouldn't look him in the eyes sometimes because he could tell that she could see the
Jack
shine
and him.
and see Jack, yeah. And it was painful for her to look at him, which is just really, really hard, you know. I can't imagine. Yeah.
Jack ends up accidentally spilling. I think he flung his hand in a fit of rage because Danny pushed him too far.
Yeah.
But he spills the drink on Dan, and we get a wonderful recreation of.
This isn't in the theatrical cut. This is only in the director's cut.
Of Jack cleaning up Dan in the red bathroom.
It is so fucking cool. It looks... Okay, so we talked about... What's his name that plays...
Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas, yes.
Elliot.
Yes,
from E.T.
Elliot from E.T. He had to shave his head so that they could put the hair on
to make the hairline look like Jack's.
Like Jack's.
Hairline, yeah.
And I'm sorry, he gets the voice... He gets the... I mean, really, he did
From a profile, he looks damn close. But when you look at him head on...
looking at him head on, but from the side for
he
sure.
looks a lot like
absolutely
Jack Nicholson.
And that's what they've used most of the shots are.
Specifically at the bar when he's talking, when the two are talking to one
for
another
sure.
and everything.
Which I'm sure they did that on purpose, like knowing like this is the best angle that we've got for this.
100%.
Yeah, so Dan, he tells Dan that he should abandon Abra and leave her to be consumed by the hotel.
When Rose confronts Dan and Abra, they mentally pull her into the Overlook's hedge maze.
Yeah, so Rose arrives. And Abra does finally come into the hotel.
Yeah, because he tells her to stay out there where it's nice and warm because he doesn't want her in there a minute longer than what she has to be.
Right. He doesn't want her in there at all, really.
Right.
I mean,
but
she stays out there waiting to watching for Rose's headlights.
Yeah, because once you see Rose's headlights from down the way, it's like another mile, so she's got time to get inside.
Right. And so she just like mentally tells Dan like she's here, like we need to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan comes out and gets Abra, brings her in. And yeah.
So,
I mean, they have a plan though. Like
inside the hedge maze, Abra is literally slicing and dicing Rose on her leg.
In fact, she says to her at some point, pain makes it taste better, or makes it
because
taste
she knows
sweeter
that's what they said to the kid.
Yep. But yeah, so Abra basically is kind of like running back and forth, and eventually she does get a hold of Abra. But it's then that she realizes that
it's not Abra's mind.
Not Abra's mind that she's trapped in. And it's the hedge maze, but it's like, it's bigger than the hedge maze was in The Shining. Like, Dan's been building this and making it even bigger as a way to trap all of those boxes inside the hedge maze.
Which, mind you, we have absolutely no idea the extent of how many boxes he
has. He could have tons.
Thousands.
We don't know.
Thousands.
He could be, even if they weren't ghosts from the Overlook, he could have been being visited by
other
all kinds of things for years,
right.
You know? But yeah, so Dan tries to trap Rose in a box. But
at this point, Rose throws them both out of Dan's mind. All three of them.
All three of them, yeah.
But
he throws back into the Overlook.
Rose throws them all out. Dan tells Abra to run, and then Rose and Dan have an axe fight.
How the hell did we miss you?
Rose gets the upper hand.
Yeah, she does, man.
She swings the axe into his femoral artery in his leg, meaning he's going to die now. And uses his...
Which I think, always knew that Dan was going to die. I think Dan knew once he went back to the Overlook that he was going to die.
Most likely going to die. But she uses that to put pressure
She's over here rubbing her leg like, oh my god, I can't even imagine what that must have felt like. I'm watching it. It's
hilarious. Rose uses the wound to inflict more pain upon Dan, to suck up his steam, his shine. And she's like, oh god, it's like a fine
tastes like whiskey. Yeah.
Because you're so old.
How did we miss you? Yeah.
You taste like whiskey.
Which is just, woo!
He then shows her the hedge maze again with all the boxes. And she's like, what are you hiding in there? And he's like, oh no, I'm not hiding that. They're hungry. And then he releases all of them, and they just descend upon her and just...
They're starving!
Fucking wipe her out.
And it's really cool to see all the ghosts. Because obviously they're not the same people that played them in The Shining.
40 years later.
Yeah. So, I forgot to mention my fun little detail thing. So, when they show Rebecca Ferguson's character, Rose the Hat, land on the road just outside of Abra's house, when she projects herself over there, as she's walking up to Abra's house, the fence right there, their address is 1980. Oh, sorry to mention that all this time later, but that was my fun little tidbit. But attention to detail, that's great. Anyways,
the entities drain Rose completely of her shine,
put their hands inside of her and pull it all out. They drain her ass,
and then they turn their attention to Dan.
Hello, Danny.
Who ends up becoming possessed just like his father did 40 years prior.
Yep. Dan finds Abra and trying to fight the hotel's influence. Really, Abra ends up pulling him out.
Great party, isn't it?
He goes to swing the axe down on her and stops. Dan stops the entities. But he tells her to run. And he returns to the boiler room because she said, there's something you guys don't know. He went to the boiler room. That was the first thing that he did when he got here, was went to the boiler room. Which means, we're gonna watch it all engulf into flames. Abra is able to get out of the hotel.
We're also treated to this shot too of Dan chasing Abra through the hotel, and then we get flashbacks to Jack chasing Danny through the hotel.
Yeah.
Which is not really flashbacks. It's recreated with Henry Thomas and the younger actor playing Danny in this. But then sometime later, Abra talks to the ghost of Danny.
We don't know it's a ghost. She's seen talking to Danny in her room.
Right. And he tells her that he is at peace.
Shine on, Abra Stone. You shine on.
Really.
Abra's mother learns to adjust to her daughter's powers, especially in communicating with the spirit of her deceased husband.
Yeah.
We go on.
Yeah. I mean, she says to her mom, we go on. But yeah, so the reason that we know that it's Danny's ghost is because she's talking to Danny, then her mom comes into the room and nobody's there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but it's nice to know that they're still talking to each other. I hope Dan is visiting her more than Dick was visiting Dan.
Well, I mean,
and helping her.
Dick was suppressed.
Yeah.
Dan suppressed the shine.
Yeah.
So with Abra embracing it, but I mean, even then, the last time Dick visited Danny, he said, "This is gonna be my last time." It hurts coming back.
Yeah.
You listen, son. It hurts to be here, so I'll only say it once.
So at some point, Danny's gonna have to move on.
Well,
too.
that's because I think the reason that it hurts is because he's using his shine, using up all his shine or whatever's left in the afterlife to get to Dan, while Dan is suppressing it. Knowing that Abra can probably talk to them easier,
maybe
because she's not suppressing it. I don't know.
I mean,
that's kind of
a
my
possibility.
thoughts, you know.
It's definitely a possibility.
Abra is then confronted by the ghost of the rotting woman from the Overlook. She goes into the bathroom. It almost looks like the exact same hallway as Danny's bathroom from the beginning. But she turns in to face her, just as Danny did in the very beginning, and she walks into the bathroom and traps her in a box, just like that. And that's how we end our movie.
Danny apparently taught her how to do it.
Good for you. Well, Dick did say, someday you're going to teach someone too. He sure did.
Yeah, he did.
Thoughts on this movie?
This, I think, is probably, and mind you, I haven't read the book, but I know the book is different. Like the Overlook Hotel gets burned down in The Shining in the book and everything like that. Dick Hallorann's alive, all this other stuff. So they had to alter it. And that was the problem. Like when approaching Stephen King, Mike Flanagan told him, like, look, you have fans of the book, you have fans of The Shining. I'm trying to bridge the best of both worlds here. And that's when Stephen King gave him his blessing to make the film. But this, I think, is probably my favorite Stephen King film.
Yeah. I would agree with you.
My favorite Stephen. I'll throw this on and watch this at any given point in time because it's that fucking good.
Yeah, it's very, very good. I would say maybe a close second to The Shining, just simply because of the genius of it. But at the same time, knowing the shit that Kubrick put everybody through, like, just makes it puts such a damper on everything.
It makes it hard for me to enjoy the film, especially when you see
what happened to Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, Shelley Duvall. The way he tortured her and basically pushed her into retirement of acting because of the way he treated her on set.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
Rest in peace, Shelley.
And rotten pieces, Kubrick.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, this is a fucking straight up bloody machete to the sky.
To the sky, for sure. Let's throw our hats up for this one. Legit. I loved it.
You can.
I won't throw your hat. I promise.
We're gonna send that back to the
Ooh, I think you hit the ceiling on that one.
I got the wire hit.
Yeah. Alright. So let's jump into another. Let's go back into a franchise.
Well, you remember last year how we said that 2025 is going to be the year of sequels? Well,
and finishing out these franchises and
stuff.
This
was a sequel. We've already covered 3 other sequels already. 4 out of our 6 reviews thus far have been sequels.
Yeah.
And we're not stopping.
We're really not stopping. We're going to keep going after this.
We're going back to the fucking lake, everybody.
Come on and join us back at Crystal Lake, where we go for a new... Yeah, that's true. It is now a new beginning.
Take that with a grain of salt. But come back here next week and watch it. Until then, be sure to slash that subscribe button,
stab the like button,
and ring-a-ling that great bell so you don't get lost in the mix and can stay up to date on everything that we are doing on YouTube.
And until next time, we will see you all
in the afterlife.